Hey, hello everyone. I hope you're having a great day and enjoying the conference. Thanks for stopping by to listen to my presentation on a topic that me and my team are very passionate about, and that is advancing data analytics as it relates to roadkill. The presentation is going to focus specifically on what we consider to be the four key elements that we think make up an effective roadside observation system. I prepared some slides, but then I really look forward to having a deeper conversation to answer any questions, feedback, and insights you guys have afterwards. Let me pull up the slides that I prepared to guide this conversation. So again, my name is Michael Schneider. I am the co-founder of an application called the Roadkill App. This application was designed to help promote roadkill reporting, protect animals and people, and then in some cases, reduce waste and promote recycling of perfectly good resources. Now, you may or may not know some of this information, but just some of the highlights around roadkill. In the US, there's approximately like 1 million animals impacted by vehicle incidents every day in the United States. And unfortunately, a lot of those incidents go unreported. And these tend to cause billions of dollars in damage to road, to equipment, to vehicles, to personal injury, and even in some cases, fatalities. So we really hope that the application we've developed will help to protect animals as well as human lives. Now, these are the four key fundamental elements that we consider very important for a roadside observation system. The first one is profiling, and this is really about capturing upfront information about your user. And the more you can do that, the more value you can deliver further down in the process. And then the heart and soul of an observation system is really reporting. And we'll get into sort of some of the details and key considerations that you might want to consider in regards to reporting. And then eventually what gets reported gets sent or as notifications to different stakeholders. So we'll talk about how to effectively do that. And then ultimately for mitigation and prevention, what is really key is being able to aggregate that information for analysis and learning so that you have sort of insightful conclusions and information that you can act on within your organization. Now, from a roadkill standpoint, the journey we took really uncovered the fact that there are a lot of different stakeholders that are interested in roadkill. And so when you're profiling, you really need to recognize that there are lots of different users coming into your system or application. So for us, there's all kinds of folks out there and organizations that are interested and in some cases maybe responsible for reporting. And then once those reports are made, there are some organizations that are legally responsible for cleaning up, making sure that the roads are safe, and dealing and processing protected animals and domestic animals in the proper way. And then in other cases, there are folks out there and organizations that are repurposing some of the roadkill as a food source, and in some cases as a supply for their operation. So there's all kinds of stakeholders. And as you profile, you want to strike the right balance in terms of information that you're getting from about the user in terms of not only identification, but also preferences. So if a user is interested in a certain type of animal, certain type of season, maybe a geographical radius relative to where they live, if you can capture some of this stuff up front, then it makes a lot of that information you provide them more relevant. but you've got to strike the right balance because you don't want to compromise, any adoption, um, and people getting deterred. So profiling is a key step. The second step is really the heart of an observation system, which is reporting. And in a roadside observation system, you've got all kinds of use cases that you might want to report on. So in some cases, it could be a down power line or a fallen tree. In our case, it's roadkill, right? It could be garbage on the street. But whatever you're reporting, you want to make sure that it's intuitive and that it's as simple as possible. And for us, we provide various options. So in its simplest form, it's possible to use our application to report in as little as two presses of a button or less than 2 seconds. But if the situation calls for it, the user has the option to add more information like photographs or fill out a form or a text box to provide more information that they think is relevant or could be helpful to those that are getting notified. So the key thing is to sort of strike the right balance with reporting because you want as much reports as you can, but you want it to be detailed enough, informative enough so that the people that are responding to those reports have enough information to accurately prepare and manage and respond to those reports. And that brings us to the third component, which is notifying. So when you're notifying, again, back to sort of that slide that I was presenting in terms of all the different users and stakeholders, the key thing about notification is that you want to make sure that you're presenting information at the right time to the right user. And so the information that you captured in the profile step can get married up with the reporting or what's being reported. And then that way you can intelligently apply some of those rules, notification rules, to be able to deliver relevant and timely notification to your user. So underneath what seems like a very simple capability can be quite complex if you're starting to intersect different dimensions of information in the profile and the report to determine, yes, I should notify, this Department of Transportation after these many minutes or within this jurisdiction, and for these kind of animals. So maybe SPCA responds to domestic animals differently because you want to handle them differently. One of the conversations that we had was with the Department of Wildlife, where they were making the point that there's a lot of endangered species that get impacted, and in some cases it's prohibited to actually handle or harvest these kind of animals. In other cases, they want to make sure that if there is an incident with a certain type of animal, that there are permits that are being issued, because by law, in some states, you're required to have a permit. So there are configuration rules that can be included, but in your system, as far as notification, you want to make sure you have fully understood that intersection between the profile and the report information so that you're relaying a notification to a specific stakeholder in the right way, in the right time, in the right situation. So that's a key thing. Now, once you have all this information, the profile, the reporting, all the notification, all of that gets captured in a database. So that's really where a lot of the power and impact of a roadside observation system has effect, because it's when you start to analyze all of this data, what is being reported, right? Who's using this application? How did people respond to those reports, and in what timely manner? And how did they deal with the actual incident? All of this information can be captured within the database if it's organized and architected properly. So what you want to do is to make sure that you have developed your data analytics in such a way that it is relevant to those that are using it for their own purpose. So for example, for large organizations that are gathering a lot of information and millions of points of data, it may be more relevant not to interact with the app, but to be able to use a web app or to export the data so that they can import it into their own personal or organizations platforms, such as like a SaaS or business intelligence application. And that way, they can do a lot of robust data analytics. But in other cases, like mom and pop want to know more about kind of what's happening in their neighborhood, how many animals have been reported as roadkill in their area, what kind of species are getting hit by vehicles, and how long does it take typically to pick them up. This kind of information can be more valuable in some cases to those kind of folks using a graphical interface where they can just interact within the app, such as this screen here, and just double click on a couple areas where maybe they're particularly interested. So again, these are the 4 components that we wanted to highlight that we think are really key to any kind of roadside observation system. You guys might have more input and feedback into what issues that you may have, any other elements that maybe I didn't talk about. So I'd really love to hear kind of your thoughts and questions about this particular topic. And I'm really looking forward to the discussion. But firstly, thanks again for taking the time to listen to my presentation. As far as Roadkill is concerned, we hope that this technology will ultimately get in the hands of hopefully as everybody to be able to report as much as possible these kind of events and ultimately mitigate and prevent injury to animals and people. So that's all we have. Thanks for listening, and I guess it's time for Q&A. Thank you very much.